Te pare po como se, guys. All right. Yay, all right. All right. I feel like I'm done already. That was such a good applause. I'm done. See y'all later. I'm joking. All right. Guys, we're going to do some good stuff today. We have a saffron poached salmon. We have some couscous that we're going to flavor with some roasted butternut squash, some fresh basil, a little bit of Trinity, and we're going to use the poaching liquid for the sauce, okay? So this recipe I want to do because couscous, you can do so many things with it. We can put so many things in that couscous instead of butternut squash and basil. And also with this poaching liquid, we can put a lot of different seafood in there and poach with this liquid. So this is the same liquid we use for our bouillabaisse if you've eaten with us before. Our bouillabaisse pasta, and it's a traditional Mediterranean fish stew. It's got saffron, tomato, and just really rich with fish stock. So we're going to start on that first, guys. This is something you want to probably make ahead of time, like gumbo or red beans and rice, jambalaya. That stuff gets better with time. So you make it the day before, refrigerate it overnight, and those flavors will just burst the next day. And also that saffron will just bring out a lot more color the next day. While that's heating up, we're gonna go over some ingredients. Okay, y'all like butternut squash? Yes. Yeah, I love butternut squash. So we're gonna get to that later, but show you how we did that. We have some chicken stock. Let's start with the bouillabaisse recipe. All right, we have some shrimp stock. Some white wine. Some diced yellow onion. Some canned diced tomatoes. Usually those cans are about 14 to 15 ounces. That's fine. It's funny because those companies that make canned diced tomatoes, they use a lot of the better tomatoes to do those diced tomatoes. So a diced tomato product is so much better than going to the grocery store and getting those things they call tomatoes and making it with that. There's just not a lot of flavor unless you have some in your garden, some heirloom tomatoes or something like that. But you get a nice tomato liquid also when you use cans. So we have some diced tomatoes for that. Our saffron. This is actually the most expensive herb on earth. Just a little tidbit. Actually, saffron comes from a flower in the Middle East, and each flower has these threads that come out, and there's about 3 to 5 threads on each flower, and they hand pick these threads, and they're real like pieces of hair, so that's why they're so expensive. Actually, no, not really. Actually, I just have a sign that says I'll cut your finger off if you mess with it, so it seems to work pretty good. All right, so the recipe had 3 garlic cloves on there. I went ahead and minced them up, but whole is good too because we're going to process it at the end. So we get our pan nice and hot, a little more olive oil. All right, we're going to caramelize the yellow onion. Like I said before, we're going to do a lot of things today. So throughout the process, if y'all have any questions, let me know. Yes, ma'am.
We bought one time a product called Mexican saffron. What would be the difference between the saffron and Mexican?
It might be the way it's
saffron.
sold, like it might be dried or something, but there's no saffron in Mexico, so I don't know. But with that said, though, that is a good place to get saffron threads is the Mexican store. So they use it a lot in moles and stuff like that, and I think that comes from the Spanish influence because in Spain there's a lot of saffron and they use it a lot. So.
But there is no Mexican saffron.
No. All right, so halfway through caramelizing the onions, guys, we're going to put some minced garlic in there. So for the shellfish stock, if you use shrimp for anything, just reserve the shells. Anytime you use shrimp, you should always reserve the shells. Always get shrimp with the shells on, heads on. Reserve the heads and shells so you can make your stock to do recipes like this. If you don't have it, you can use just like some chicken bouillon cubes, just to give a little bit of flavor. Yes, ma'am.
Can you freeze that shellfish?
Yes, you can. Definitely. You can freeze pretty much anything that doesn't have cream. If it has cream in it, the milk solids will separate, and it won't work out. So, all right. So we just get that a little bit translucent, a little bit more than translucent. Then we put our white wine in there. Something dry. You don't want anything very sweet. So it's like a Chablis, Chardonnay, anything like that, just not too sweet. We're going to want to reduce that down by about half. So on our menu, we do this bouillabaisse stock, and we sear some fish, some shrimp, some scallops, some crawfish, and different things. And then we reduce it down, and as it's simmering with all the seafood in it, it just fortifies the flavor even more. And then we finish it with a little bit of butter. I lie, a lot of butter, but butter makes it better, right?
Do you get unsalted canned tomatoes?
Yeah, that's usually what we use. It's usually just tomatoes and water and nothing else on the ingredients for sure. All right, we might have to pretend like this stuff reduces down a little bit. I'm gonna get some other stuff while it's reducing though. The saffron we add last, right when we're processing it, and then we just let it sit overnight, like I said, and the next day it'll kind of be really nice and pink and real flavorful. All right, so let's get to the butternut squash. Okay, so, all right, so we had the whole butternut squash. We took the ends off, right? And then we put it up like this, carefully, your hands on top, get it in there, and then just wiggle it down, all right? Then when you open it up, there's seeds, just like any other squash right here. You take a cooking spoon and just get them out of there. Then you put on a sheet pan, baking pan, extra virgin olive oil, some salt and pepper. You lay it meat side down, and you bake it for about 375, 400 degrees for about 35 to 40 minutes to an hour, okay? Until you can do this, all right? Until it's nice and tender, and then it's done. Then you set it aside, let it cool so you can use your hands. And there's really no pretty way to it, guys. You just kind of take the skin off. And if there's a little bit of skin left on there, it's not a big deal. Butternut squash soup. You take a little bit of this roasted butternut squash just like this. Some brown sugar, a little bit of onion. You saute that onion. Then you put that butternut squash in there. A little bit of brown sugar, some heavy cream. A little bit of chicken stock. Cook it down, puree it. A little blue cheese crumble on top. I'm telling you, butternut squash is one of those items like pork, roasted pork, that'll make you look like a champ in the kitchen. It has so much just natural, yummy flavors. One full butternut squash will probably be a bit much for the full recipe for 4 people. It just depends on how much you want in there. It's not going to make or break the recipe if you don't use the whole thing, and it won't if you do. So, again, you just got to kind of get messy. It doesn't have to look pretty. All right, so that's reduced by about half, guys. We're going to go ahead and add the diced tomatoes. Really simple recipe. The shrimp stock and the saffron is the key to this recipe. All right, so for the butternut squash, it can be just rough chopped. The butternut squash is just, it's pretty similar to a sweet potato. It has a little bit more give in terms of texture than a sweet potato does. Some parts are a little shreddy, so you can kind of take those out if you want, but they're still pretty tasty. All right. I got a lot of stuff for this recipe. All right, so we're gonna put that in here, set it aside for the couscous. So again, when you're making this recipe, you don't have to do all this at once. You can make your bouillabaisse stock the day ahead because it's going to be better that way anyway. And then you can make everything else and just bring the saffron broth back up to cook the salmon. All right, we're going to put the chiffonade basil in here. Can everybody see? All right, chiffonade basil, you just roll it up, put the leaves together. That's chiffonade of basil, okay? All right, we're gonna start working on the couscous, guys. All I wanna do for that right now is saute the Trinity. Does anybody remember what Trinity is? Onion, celery, and bell pepper. It's the Louisiana Mirepoix, right? Did y'all like the hors d'oeuvres today? That crawfish pie was pretty tasty. Good. All right, here's our Trinity. So we want to get that extra virgin olive oil, medium-high heat, right before smoke to caramelize the Trinity. And right now what we're doing, we got to think about the couscous when it's finished, okay? So we're seasoning the couscous. We're going to use this as a seasoning. We're going to saute that, get the sweetness out of the onions and bell peppers, and put it in this bowl with the fresh basil and butternut squash. And then what we're going to do after that, take the chicken stock, bring it to a boil, put it over the couscous, wrap it with film, and the couscous will cook in there with the butternut squash, basil, and the Trinity. So what's happening is while that's in there with the couscous, it's flavoring. It's just all the aromatics of the butternut squash and basil are infusing into the couscous, okay? Yes. All right, Trinity. Some minced garlic. All right, so the bouillabaisse, to finish that off, I'm pretty liberal with my saffron. That's about it, all I'm liberal with, but my saffron I definitely am.
There is no substitute for saffron.
No substitute for saffron? No, not really. No, not at all, really. I mean, like I said, you can go and they'll have it at Publix, and you don't need much. I mean, you probably will spend $5 to $6 to $10 on what you need for the recipe, saffron wise. So, I'm trying to learn, you guys. All right. Let's do a little black pepper and salt. All right, so I have a trolling motor. I went fishing yesterday, so I did clean it off really, really good. But so we're gonna process the bouillon. You can do a food processor too. Notice how I put that saffron in there and then I processed it, okay? That's important. Y'all smell that sugar coming out of there? There's nothing better than caramelized Trinity. That's the biggest thing I remember about my grandfather is that smell. All right, so we got that processed. I think I'm using every kitchen utensil in the book today, guys. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put that in there. right. Now, chicken stock. Shrimp stock. On there, yeah. All right, we put that shellfish stock in there. We want to let it reduce. Not necessarily reduce, but just cook and let those flavors just keep on infusing. As you can see, it's nice and pinkish, orangish already. All right, so all we're going to do is bring this to a boil. Put it over this couscous and wrap it with some film. So we got our couscous in the bowl. We got our chicken stock coming to a boil. Once this bouillabaisse comes to a boil, we're going to start cooking that salmon. Do you want to taste this? Trust me, it's good. Okay. We got to get butter in there somewhere, right? Y'all are like, God, dog, he hasn't put any butter in anything. This is crazy. Is he out of his mind? Nope. All right. Once that comes to a boil, we'll put that salmon in there. The good thing about letting that bouillabaisse rest a day also is the saffron broth will be really, really orange. And when you cook the salmon in there, it'll really tint that salmon and make it really, really infused with that saffron. Whether you put the couscous in the pot and then take it off the pot and then let it sit, or put it in the hot liquid in a bowl and wrap it with film, it works the same way. I like to do it in a bowl. That's just how I've always done it. All right, so our bouillabaisse stock is boiling now. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. You have blanching, poaching, and boiling. In terms of boiling is 212, poaching is right under that, and blanching is right under poaching. So we want it right under a boil because we don't want to be really drastic or aggressive with the fish. We want it to stay together and cook evenly in the poaching liquid. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put that salmon in there.
Consider it solar powered.
I have. I just can't afford that like you, Tony. All right, so completely submerge it in there, guys. So when you're doing 4 of these fillets, you want to have a nice, kind of wide bottom, so you don't necessarily have to do them all, one at a time, maybe 2 at a time, but it's okay to kind of overcrowd them, because if you do want to do them all at once in a pot like this, bring it to a boil, and then once you put the salmon there, it'll lower the temperature of the liquid, and it'll slow down the cooking. So, see, I'm boiling away. All right, so this is boiling now. So you want to give it one good stir. Then come back here. All right, so we had the chicken stock in the couscous. We're going to let that steep in there. It's cooking the couscous. Anybody have a question? Well, you might. Couscous is basically the wheat of semolina flour, or semolina wheat. It's what semolina flour is made out of. So it's just a little semolina wheat that semolina flour is made of, that pasta is made out of. That's what couscous is. All right, so in terms of cooking the salmon, I like mine medium rare, maybe medium. So that'd probably be about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. If you want it all the way done, probably go more 5 or 6 minutes, okay? But just know if it is well done, it's going to be kind of hard to take out. It might fall apart a little bit, so. And I'm just going to turn this off and just let it steep in there. And it'll slowly finish.
I have a question about the bouillabaisse.
Uh-huh.
What's the difference between that and like a pot bouillon?
It's pretty similar. Usually a coubillon, what we call it in Louisiana, but it is court bouillon in France. But coubillon or sauce piquant in Louisiana is just more rustic and chunky and just got all the stuff in it. You know, a bouillabaisse is a little bit more classical in terms of finesse and finished.
So could you take like either one of them and turn them into a soup?
Of course, yeah, definitely.
It's supposed to become very hot in Louisiana.
Yeah, sauce piquant. Hot sauce. All right. So we're just kind of waiting for that couscous.
How do you know when the couscous is done?
About 4 or 5 minutes. The pearls of couscous are really, really tiny. There's some called Israeli couscous that are a little bit bigger, or pearl couscous, that you actually have to cook it like pasta. But these, they're so small, so probably 4 or 5 minutes and you're good to go.
So what kind is this?
This is just regular couscous. Yeah. So to plate up, I'm gonna go ahead and take that salmon out and finish this. This is one of my favorite things to eat, though. You have the richness of the stock, and then the salmon was nice enough to add some more flavor to it. So we're gonna bring that back up to a boil. So we've poached all the salmon for the night, right? Now we're gonna finish it off and make a sauce. And you wanna talk about your soup, well, the next day you have plenty of liquid left, so let's make a soup out of it. Put some shrimp in there, some crawfish, whatever, some crab meat. All right. Now we're gonna make a beurre blanc, okay? All we're doing is adding some butter. This is a 1/4 pound of butter. It probably needs actually 1/2 pound. I was just being nice today. Hey, wait till you taste it. If we had some bread to dip. I know, right? You can poach any seafood in this. All right. A little salt and pepper in there. All right, so plate up. First you gotta taste. Pretty darn good. All right. So with the Trinity, I put some red bell pepper in there, giving it a little bit of color, a little bit of attitude to the couscous. All right, my spoon. You see what that saffron does to that broth? Let me clean my plate with my dirty towel. A little fresh green onion. That's the saffron poached salmon, guys. Thank y'all. All right, as I'm sure you guys are ready to taste it now, I've been teasing y'all for what, 30, 45 minutes? I'm gonna go to the back and make some for you guys, all right? How was it? All right. Wow. Awesome, guys. I really appreciate that. Thank y'all for coming tonight. We had a great time. How about you guys? I had fun. Y'all had fun? Good. And you guys thought that I wasn't going to be able to say fat equals flavor, but at the end, I put a 1/4 pound of butter in that recipe. So, as always, guys, at Gabe's Downtown, fat equals flavor. Thank y'all.